streaming. I'll just check with everybody. For anyone here watching, we'll be starting in a couple of minutes' time. We're just making sure we've got all the everyone's joined and that all the technical ducks are in a row. So bear with me. The dog snores in the background. Perfect, thank you. That's great. Okay, we'll just give everybody a minute or so to join us, and then we'll make a start. Okay. We're 1 minute past the half hour. Let me just double check that everything's working, and then we'll make a start. Okay, good. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on this LinkedIn Live event. What we're doing today is recording actually an episode of a podcast, a podcast series for the journey. So what we're starting shortly. I just want to make sure that everyone's ready and we're all sorted, and we'll make a start. Hello and welcome to this episode of For the Journey. This is IP Fabric's podcast, where we're hearing from practitioners and experts who are tackling our next generation network operations issues head on, really learning from their experiences. Now, today we're joined by a very special guest. He's actually an IP Fabric customer with a really great story to tell. Guru, how about you introduce yourself to start us off?
Daren, thank you so much for bringing me to your podcast series. It's exciting to be here today. I've been a great follower of your podcast and the community fabric, and you've been bringing the best of the best from the industry and helping the community and the community fabric grow in bringing that intelligence together, and it takes a village to do that, and kudos to you for doing that consistently. With that, I'm Guruprasad Ramamurthy, go by Guru in short. I lead the global network for S&P Global, a combination of architecture, engineering, and operations function. And I've been in the industry for over 18 years now, and have led all these functions. And today at S&P Global, I lead this global team of over 100 people, building, managing, maintaining the world-class network infrastructure for a leading company.
Awesome. Well, thank you for introducing, and thank you for those very kind words as well. I think it's an important thing to say before we start. Really, it's part of the way that IP Fabric approaches the community generally, is that it's all about us working together to build better network operations. And so we're really super pleased to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Now, when I was preparing for this, I was obviously reading your CV, and it struck me that you've got a very rich networking background. You know firsthand all the problems with network operations, with engineering, and will have a really good handle, as most people do in your position, as to what makes a successful network operations organization. And I guess the first step for that is defining strategy. Is that fair?
Oh yes, absolutely. The strategy plays a key role Before I talk about the strategy, let me introduce S&P Global a little bit, who we
Please.
are, what we do, right? S&P Global is a leading provider of independent ratings, benchmark, analytics, and data to capital and commodity markets worldwide and to many businesses. What we do at S&P Global is continuing to powering the markets of the future. Many world-leading organizations, governments, and the businesses, they rely on our essential intelligence to make the decision with conviction. To do this, we are a company of about 35,000 strong people operating in about 48 countries. And if you simply convert that into an engine room of S&P Global, that consists of an infrastructure that runs in four cloud providers, 20 data centers, over 100 offices, which runs our world-class product. And if you further translate the infrastructure of this scale into a simple networking statement, we are again talking about multi-cloud hybrid cloud network across the cloud providers, across the data centers, across the office WAN backbone, and all of this have to be uh, built, maintained, and delivered with greater availability, greater security, and greater user experience. It comes with a greater responsibility
Of
of
course.
doing all of this, and the network team does this uh, with time and again at S&P Global. To do all of this, you need a stronger strategy of where we are going. I mean, historically, all of us have done this architecture, engineering, and operations. And when I first came in, it is important to understand the mission statement of how do we connect ourselves to the company's the statement of powering the markets of the future. And to power the markets of the future and to provide that intelligence, the essential intelligence to thousands of our customers worldwide, because the opportunity is moving in nanosecond speed. The world is moving in nanosecond speed, and post COVID, all of us are dealing with that speed and the agility and whatnot. Uh, Enterprises of today are no more that enterprise network, right? It's no more that one single MPLS network. You no more have that
Right.
internet as a network. Your boundary has grown. If you are an enterprise who are already connected with AWS and Azure and Oracles and Googles, you're already a network of a network.
Yeah, of course.
And there goes the mission statement of my strategy. We are a network of a network, but with a goal to enable secure and seamless connectivity and experience in order for our business to deliver the essential intelligence anytime, anywhere, right? And with that comes with that undertaking of leading a six pillars of our bigger transformation strategy, which means in order for us to deliver the data, in order for us to deploy the application anytime and
Mm,
anywhere, the network needs to be flexible, on demand, and globally interconnected. Like I said, enterprises of the past used to be that private MPLS and few internet breakouts and whatnot.
yeah.
And to meet the new demand globally and to meet the expectations of the business to deliver the data globally for a company like S&P Global, we have built that flexible on-demand global network, which means ability to build infrastructure quickly, ability to build a new site quickly, ability to deliver a new a cloud region quickly.
Sure.
But to do all of that, the second biggest pillar is, can we do all of this manually? Can we put hands on keyboard with thousands of engineers and all of it? You need to have that programmable mindset
Yeah.
of taking that the historical mindset of software as a code and infrastructure as a code, and looking into network as a code, and how you can make things as a more consumable way, self-service way. And industry has evolved over the last 2 to 3 years with quite a lot of tools ecosystem, which we will talk about it in the
Yeah.
later part of the session, and bringing that capability and joining them. And what happens, and when you do all of this, you build a global interconnection, great, and then you delivered services in a programmable way, great. Then where are your users,
Mm,
right? Things changed in the last 2 years significantly, where the users are no more in the 100 offices. The users are
that's true.
probably everywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why that focus on edge is extremely important post COVID, you're dealing with users sitting in tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, small towns and everywhere.
Yeah.
And the understanding of the edge and delivering that user experience at the edge is the key. And when you kind of, again, going back to building that global network, made it programmable, and then, okay, you focused on your user edge.
Yeah.
Now you're basically expanding your security exposure a lot,
Of
right?
course.
And we took that shift left approach in building that security of building that security at the edge and focusing on the edge security where things like zero trust models are evolving, as we are all hearing. How do we make sure we adopt those principles and apply in our infrastructure? And we took that approach, and we constantly looked at how do we strengthen our core,
Mm.
right? Where does our core critical services live in? Where does our crown jewel business live in? Where does our services are living in? We constantly looked at improving the availability of our core services.
Yeah.
But for a operations team, they need a world view, right? They are no more in the NOC. They are no more in a big world-class network operation center looking at like 100 different panels, and they can quickly swift through what's happening. They have all gone back to their working from home, hybrid
Yeah.
work from home
Yeah.
model. And we have to give them that ability to have that world view within that 17-inch monitor, in simple words, right? How do you do
Yes.
that, right? You cannot
Yeah. Yeah.
send them like a 65-inch panels to their home and build their knock in their home. We have to figure out the what's going to be the knock of the future
Yeah.
and
Of
create that
course.
worldview operations. One of the six pillars of that is the worldview in operations.
Sure, sure. And I mean, there's an interesting point there, isn't there? Because you've already mentioned the fact that you're talking about multiple different networks, basically, and different vendor environments, different domains of responsibility, I suppose, to at that engineering level. But you need to have a view of all of those and how they're interconnected, how they work together, to get that observability. So a single vendor approach or a single tool isn't going to be enough, I suppose. So you've tackled that in a very specific way with your observability platform, right?
Absolutely. Like I said, I'll talk about the operations side a little bit about the worldview in operations and why it is important. Um, in order for us to build that visualization capability, and create that intent behind that capability, because you cannot kind of log into four different panels.
Yeah,
One is your constant service now dealing with tickets, and then you're logging into the SSH, doing a routing, switching, and firewalling, and then you're dealing with SaaS tools, that are SaaS based network tools to do that. But how do you kind of predict what's happening in the network almost in real time, right? What gave us is the software development industry, over time, have laid the greater foundation to what is happening in the network world today. They did CI, they brought Agile, they brought CI/CD, they
yeah,
brought DevOps, they brought SRE, and it's a great learning that we should just piggyback on and figure out how to apply these principles in a networking world, right? If you essentially look at the networking business, has always been that black box monolithic teams, and the future is going to be the continuous everything practice,
sure,
which means you wanted that continuity in everything that you do. You build something, you need the continuity. You maintain something, you need the continuity, right? It's a simple user experience of how every business operates. So what we did is we took that continuity everything in approach as a best practice, and we took that best practices from the agile world, CI/CD world, DevOps world, and SRE world, and combined them as a continuity of everything, and started doing our operations. And and if I further simplify that, we are no more in that world of one can build the house and somebody else will live the house.
sure,
At S&P Global within the network team, that's something we made it very clear. There is not somebody who is building the house, there is not somebody who is living in the house.
sure.
If you are building the house, build it for yourself, and figure out how to live in that house so that you experience your house, right? historically, when there used to be this gray walls between
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
architecture, engineering, and operations team, yeah, I build the house and then somebody else is maintaining it. There comes that the difference in understanding of how do you build the house? You did not build it right, and I'm maintaining it because of what you built. We are that brings that unified team of one who builds it is who is living it, is the one who is maintaining it. That
yeah.
brings that the cohesive force of how we achieve things in our strategy.
Which yeah, I'm thinking back to my time as a network engineer, and that idea of having to go in, do complete a project to build some network, and then create all the documentation and the handover process and all the rest of it, to then give it to someone else to then maintain. And there was always confusion and
Right,
difficulty in that flow. And what you're describing there is removing that, basically, isn't it? Because you're
correct,
creating this continuity
correct.
right the way through. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Exactly.
And
I'll,
again,
I'll also answer your point about the multi-vendor approach and the
sure, sure.
continuity approach, right? If you look at the larger network ecosystem, it has evolved over the 3 years. In the last 3 years, essentially,
Yeah,
if in any network world, we are dealing with over 30 to 40 products doing different things in the network. You have a router to do routing, switches, core switches, river beds, accelerators, load balancers. You can just keep counting on. If
of
one has to
course.
pull their inventory in your CMDB, I can guarantee that you would find at least 20 different products.
Yeah,
And if you simply look at the top players in the market, we're talking about 30 to 40 key products, right? And if you look at, is there a one vendor who can come and stitch this ecosystem together to deliver that observability? Is there a one vendor who can basically stitch that APIs together
yeah,
to create that network automation? And of course, one can decide to do native Ansible, native Terraform, and native development. But there comes a challenge of how do you scale? How do you
mm,
maintain? And how do you evolve? Right? You don't when enterprises are not in the businesses of creating network
no,
products. Those are the responsibilities of the networking companies to do that.
yeah,
But enterprises are on the consumer side of
consuming it.
consuming the best of the breed, and doing all of that. And what we did is we decided, let's take the best of the breed. And if you essentially see over the last 2 years, those network tools that are evolving, which is fairly a low code tools, which
Yeah,
is very, I'm very happy to see that,
that's
because
good.
we don't want to have like 20 Java developers and C sharp developers sitting and programming. Rather, these are low code tools which nicely fits that knowledge gap between a network engineer and a software
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah,
I don't need to write code and do a QA testing and all of it. I'm building workflows. Workflows are being converted into the code. And each of these vendors are specializing in those areas. You can find a vendor who is very specialized in load balancer. Maybe they're picking up on IPAM. There's another vendor who is very specialized on um, firewalls. Yeah, I'm picking up on load balancer now. But there's two roads to go. One, you can wait for one vendor to kind of take that leader board. We don't know how many years it's going to take.
yeah, yeah,
Or you make a decision to pick the best of these breeds and create an ecosystem to connect all of them,
yeah,
right? That way we reduce the time and effort to build everything by ourselves, rather buy the right tools and then figure out a way how to connect them together. And that created the greater observability of bringing the data together, bringing the platform together.
yeah.
And IP Fabric played a critical role in the overall process of connecting the data, connecting the data points, and whatnot. And that is where it is taking us as an S&P Global as a company and our network strategy to the next level.
Yeah, which is, as you say, that ecosystem approach is something we're seeing more and more, and you rightly point out that IP Fabric is a part of that approach, but it's not the only element by any stretch, right? We see it all the time with our customers, with our partners, where we're talking with them about exactly this, about sharing the data not just not just between tools, but between teams, and making sure that data is always available, that it's deep, it's rich, but it's there and available to whoever needs it. But you mentioned that IP Fabric plays a sort of key part in the observability piece for you. Um, I, tell me a bit more about that if you can. I don't know if you can.
Sure. Let's talk about how did we accomplish that data sharing within that
Sure,
ecosystem, right? We have a tool A doing load balancer automation. We have another tool doing firewall automation. We have another tool doing maybe routing and switching automation. That's fine. Every vendor has their own strategy. Some vendor wanted to have a repo of a data, and some vendor don't want to have a repo of a data. I just wanted to give you the canvas and the
yeah,
platform and the adapters to code, but you figure out where to bring the data,
sure,
right? And when we created this ecosystem of network tools, we have to figure out who has this best of the best data. And if you simply take a running configuration of a router, we are probably talking about over 1,000 lines,
yeah,
right? And then when we deal with this data, who has the ability to deal with this 1,000 lines of configuration, quickly parsing the configuration and breaking them into smaller pieces of the configuration, and then we can consume that in runtime. And when we've kind of evaluated the process, IP Fabric came handy that time, who has the ability to kind of take a snapshot of all this data very accurately, almost in real time because of your snapshot feature, right? That minimizes the effort that I need to parse and read all this
right,
configuration and say, hey, listen, I'm only modifying a interface in a router. Why do I need to read 1,000 lines? In the process of automation, from IP Fabric, I'm able to fetch that interface level configuration
sure, sure,
very accurately and just deal with that change rather than the change has to deal with the 1,000 lines of
yeah,
configuration
yeah,
and
yeah,
do
yeah,
the right thing. That's where that ecosystem and the integration and the data sharing really, really helps. I'll also talk about another great example of a WIP change in a load balancer, which is a
sure,
common change that we have to do is because if you look at our developer runs applications, and as you can assume, any classic application consumes a load balancer,
of course,
right? And a load balancer requires constant caring and feeding of maintaining that WIP configurations,
yeah,
right? In the past, it used to be a network engineer's job of maintaining the WIP, maintaining the members, maintaining the configuration, maintaining the methods and SSLs and whatnot. And what we have done within S&P Global is we have made that entire process as a self-service
okay,
with the objective to make developer productive,
yeah,
with a mission to empower the developer with the data that they need. Today, our developers have the ability to maintain and manage their WIPs and make decision on what changes that they would like to induce at their WIP level. And those automation runs with the support of data that's coming from IP Fabric. If they decide to change a WIP configuration, the automation tool needs to know where to pull the configuration from
yeah, yeah,
that is coming from the IP Fabric. And the tool handles the data in a runtime, and the developer can make the decision in the runtime of his CI/CD changes and say, I have 5 members in my WIP and I would like to remove one of them
yeah,
because it's a bad server, right? And then they can look at the data in runtime, execute it, and then at the end of the change, they can still go back and fetch, did my change went in successfully or not.
sure, sure,
Again, in the same process, the automation is calling IP Fabric and saying, can you go back and check if my configuration is good? So the source of truth and the accuracy of data through the snapshot that's coming from IP Fabric is keeping the consistency and accuracy in our data.
yeah.
That's making our self-service network automation of enabling our users, empowering our developers to deliver services at most at a very good user experience.
It's really interesting. You brought that particular example up because that was, I remember. I won't say how long ago, but I spent a long time working for a big bank in the UK, looking after F5 load balancers, and is a really interesting point that you make, because if a network engineer is responsible for that, they have to know a lot more about the applications and everything that are running. There's a real issue with the whose responsibility it is to maintain the validity of those that load balancing configuration, because is it the application, is it the network? That's always a problem, and our traditional siloed approach does not help situation there at all, does it? So by creating this automated approach, whereby I suppose I guess you have templates for those VIPs, you have default configurations for the load balancing algorithms and all those sorts of good things that you can then put behind that self-service portal, but then use the real data from the network to validate that configuration is as you expect it to be, and then to validate that it is going to work the way you expect it to. Brings all that together, right?
Absolutely right. I think if you recall the continuous everything approach with a mindset where we wanted to enable our developers to deploy code almost same day,
Yeah.
which means if a salesperson meets a customer in the morning, finishes his meeting, comes back to the technology team and say, "Hey, listen, I met with a customer. He would like to see this button from a blue to a red. How long does it take to make a change? Can we deliver this change same day by end of day so that the salesperson can walk into the customer and say your change is ready to go, right? And that's CI/CD in simple terms. And
Yeah.
now it's about how fast you are able to do that CI/CD process. But those changes also comes with the infrastructure changes that needs to
Of
happen,
course, of
right?
course.
Not I gave you an example of a button, but now if you kind of multiply that at a scale of a bigger use case, then that comes with the cost of a network change.
Yeah.
But if we as a network team, if you continue to say, oh, it's a traditional ITSM process, you put in a ticket, I'll take 3 days to do
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah. Goes through
then the
a
customer is
cab
not going to have
and
them.
so on. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's
So which is why
painful.
we wanted to empower our developers
Yeah,
by giving them that ecosystem where they can manage their changes through self-service model,
yeah, yeah.
and this integrated ecosystem of network tools with powered by the data is enabling the developers to do the work with utmost confidence, because they also need to have the confidence in the process and the trust
Of
in the process.
course.
Fine, I'm calling out for a whip change, but what if I break things? What
Yeah,
if I break my product, right? That worry is always there. We also kind of build that confidence and the trust in the process by showing them uh, in a single pane of glass, saying, hey, here is a whip change you're making, the pre-change, the post-change. And the developer has the trust and the confidence saying, hey, yes, I'm inducing the change in a right place, right direction. It is not going to break my product. My
yeah,
product is going to be available 100%, and I can still make my change successfully. I think it's very important to emphasize the trust and the confidence
yeah.
when you do the self-service model, because you are
It's
basically passing the key to a developer who would like to do this change.
Yeah, and that again, if you've got the appropriate mechanisms in place to validate that those are exactly as they should be, once they've been executed, you're just cementing that trust and that confidence, aren't you? Which
Exactly.
is really interesting. You'll notice I'm taking notes as we go here, and I've written very large
Absolutely.
trust and confidence as the
Absolutely.
points to take away, because that's exactly what it's about. You're quite right. Now, I know, Guru, that you guys are super busy with loads of projects on the go at the moment. And of course, you've had some merger activity recently as well, which I'm sure proved challenging. Um, I believe you've got a bit of a use case around how having all of this available to you and the observability platform that you put in place has helped you with that merger activity.
Yeah, well, I'll start with a little bit of how it initially helped S&P Global when we first brought the IP Fabric, and one of the key feature that our folks were enjoying, and this is as recent as the last night conversation I had with one of my lead engineer. about the feature that came out as a part of your 4.3 release.
Okay.
You were able to discover partitions at a F5 level and produce that information very quickly. And I asked them, why are you so excited about it? He said, like, if I were asked this information prior IP Fabric, I would probably ask for a week to produce the data.
Right.
And he was able to produce the data in about 10 minutes, which is exciting to hear how the tool is not just empowering the developers in the automation process, it is also saving a lot of time with the network engineers,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
have to deal with the data in a CLI mode. They can just go and take the templates of configurations that IP Fabric's already slating it in the right direction, right?
Perfect.
Then comes anytime when you kind of deal with a large network of an enterprise such as S&P Global, you're always dealing with this big flat visual diagrams uh, with hundreds of devices and
Yeah.
blue lines, red lines, green lines, and then you have to put your lens to the details and understand. And many times the devil in the details is probably the engineer who
Yeah.
knows what
Yeah.
he is doing with. And then 24 hours later, if you look at the same diagram, there's a high possibility that diagram is obsolete. Then what changed? Oh,
Yeah.
somebody else changed something. Then why is the diagram not up to date? If you from I'm sure from your experience you'll figure out every time, why is the diagram not up to date?
No, they're
What can
never
we
up to
do
date.
that? Never, right? I think the biggest benefit IP Fabric brought to us is that modeling capability,
Sure.
right? And taking our data, converting our snapshots, and the ability to model the infrastructure either by an office or a data center or a
Sure.
cloud or probably a host to a host, right? That kind of gave us that real-time data. Somebody induced a change last night, and it changed the behavior of how the network works. And how was the network routing last night, and how is
Yeah.
it routing
And as it relates
today
to that.
is the biggest feature. I think over the last 6 months or so, I have never seen my team coming to me with a visual diagram. They always came to me with an IP Fabric modeled diagram and say, every time I used to ask them, because it's important for me in my role that I understand, am I enabling my team? Am I
Yeah.
giving the team the tools and the technologies and the capabilities that they need to do their job better? Or and that's the key aspect of my role in enabling and empowering them. In that entire process, it was extremely happy. I was extremely happy to hear that they never have to go and produce this diagram manually. They went to IP Fabric, clicked on a site somewhere in the continent, and said, "Produce the diagram." And then they produce a diagram, and they have a trust and the confidence that diagram is accurate, and which is where this underlying trust comes in,
Yeah. I was just
because
going to say there's
there
that
is
word trust again.
that gray area of what have I missed in this diagram that I don't know is completely eliminated, because the tool is taking a snapshot, it is producing layer 3, layer 2, layer 1 information, and the team can make a decision with a very good conviction and say, this is accurate diagram that I'm
Yeah.
dealing with.
Yeah.
That's the biggest benefit that S&P Global adopted. And then, as you can see, a merger of this scale and this
Yeah.
big can always get complex. And typically, any merger, network guys first in the line, right? We are the first in the
Always.
line to get stuff done, right? It's always in with any merger. And what it enabled us is, it is we are dealing with the network team of the SPGI and IHS colleagues, and sitting visualizing the diagrams in a Visio, and it is very hard to understand. And it is extremely important when we use this IP Fabric tool, we were able to quickly model the behavior that we needed to build a day one experience for our
Yeah.
employees,
Yeah.
right? Without that, you are dealing with a bigger WAN architecture of independent companies, and with a limited understanding of the risk and the security and the posture challenges. But IP Fabric enabled us to understand what is a model that we would like to see, and converting that modeling capability into a real outcome. And then when you convert it, then you again have IP Fabric discover the model, finished
Yeah.
outcome, to confirm, did your model behavior worked very well or not?
Yeah.
And then what? changes that you need to make in the due course. It has been a perfect window that we brought IP Fabric to enable S&P Global. It also came handy at a right time to
Yeah.
help us in a critical time of our merger to achieve the day one experience for our combined company. And now we are all chartered, putting together the day two and the future experience of a combined company, and with a larger charter of having S&P Global continue to deliver bigger data sets and bigger outcomes and bigger results in the coming years.
And being able to bring that self-service and automated experience to all of your employees, I guess, rather than
Ab-
just the a particular group. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to say that. We are today globally a strong 35,000 employees company post merger, and taking that tools ecosystem and the technology ecosystem and the automated ecosystem, and understanding the strengths of the both the companies, what we have done independently in the past, and appreciating and combining those technologies ecosystem is going to be the success for us. And the work that has been done historically in both sides of the companies and bringing their capabilities together is going to take us to the next level.
yeah, no, I mean it's a great to hear how you've been able to increase that agility in the network to really support, and I guess it goes all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, to support the business requirement. Ultimately, it's model the business requirement, understand what needs to be done to achieve that, and then to bring the agility into the network infrastructure to match what folks are already doing, I suppose, with cloud and all those other good things in the infrastructure space, to be able to match that and to be able to work that into those big picture workflows, I think is absolutely fascinating story. Guru, I'm conscious I don't want to take too much of your time today, and you've already given very generously. But are there any? And I realize I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here. Are there any particular takeaways that you would like people who are listening to understand from the conversation we're having today?
I think a couple of things. The the network of the future is going to be the network of the networks. Enterprises are the perimeter of the enterprises is exponentially growing, and it is important to keep an eye on that. The exponential growth and exponential exposure that brings the complexity, that brings the security challenges, and that also brings the speed and the agility challenges.
Yeah,
So the one has to continue to understand what the future of an enterprise and what the future of networking looks like, and how to deal with this multi-cloud ecosystem, and how to deliver the same consistent experience no matter what, where the user is and where they are on the planet, and enabling and empowering the developers and giving them the right data sets to deal with, and building that ecosystem of tools and technologies. Because if the evolution of the entire networking space is happening at a rapid speed,
oh
which I
yeah,
have not seen in the 5 years before.
yeah.
If you look at our network, Darren, any network 5 years before, the way it used to be is not the way the networks of the today,
That's very true. That's very
right?
true.
So to deal with that change that's happening in the industry, the network teams, the network leaders have to make a decision to deal with the change. And one cannot build it all, one cannot buy it all, but it's a perfect blend between the build versus the buy approach,
Yeah,
and find the
definitely.
right players and the right tool sets. You build what you need to build, buy what you need to buy, but find the right balance to kind of connect yourself and connect your teams to the larger organization strategy and the mission, and align your strategy and mission to the larger organization strategy.
Yeah,
And at S&P Global, when we built our mission statement for network team, we were very focused on how do we connect ourselves and continue to keep ourselves connected to the powering the markets of the future strategy, and which is why we are connected to our strategy and the company strategy, enabling
yeah.
us to deliver faster.
Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate goal, I suppose, in what you would hope that all engineering and network engineering teams would be able to achieve. But I guess what you've shown us here is that by having that focus on the ultimate business goal allows you to understand exactly what is required of the network and as you say, the network of networks in order to deliver that, which is often overlooked, I think, because of the structure, I guess, of organizations and the way they work. But what you've described in terms of those having those flows which flow between teams and really where you've got gaps potentially in knowledge and skills, what you're doing is you're filling those gaps, aren't you, with data, and allowing that data to flow between the tools, between the teams, in order to provide that agility.
Absolutely right. I mean, one of the important learning, having working in S&P Global, we are a data company.
Yeah, of course.
In my role at S&P Global, when I sit with the business team and the technology team, for us, it is we get an opportunity to understand the importance of the data.
Yeah.
Because that's what our business is dealing with. It's a great experience how our business are dealing with the data and how they are delivering their search intelligence. We took that fundamental principle and said, as a company, we are dealing with a large data set, and as a network team, we are sitting on that gold mine of data. And how
Absolutely.
can we just take that fundamental principles of converting the data into intelligence that S&P Global is doing, and take the same network data and convert that into a intelligent data that one network team can use it for our own changes.
Yeah.
Second, empower the developers to do their changes and enable the application operations team to manage their infrastructure and application challenges. It creates a perfect blend, and S&P Global is kind of helping laying that foundation of how to kind of deal with the data. And I'm pleased to be part of that journey.
Yeah, it sounds an exciting times there. So, and obviously we're lucky to be involved as well. So we're looking forward to staying engaged and talking more with you about that as we go. I appreciate your time today. I realise we've run over a little bit, but I hope that doesn't cause any problems to your schedule. But it's really, really good to talk to you, Guru. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insight. If people would like to contact you further, are they okay? Perhaps connecting with you on LinkedIn, or do you have a preference for
I'm very much
people?
available on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive.
Awesome.
My LinkedIn profile is up to date, and my contact is up to date.
Excellent.
So please do reach out if you have any questions and answers. And Darren, thank you so much for hosting.
It's a
And
pleasure.
it's a great conversation. I enjoyed talking and great questions, and look forward continuing working together and taking the network transformation to the next level.
Yeah, awesome. We'll no doubt speak soon. Thank you for your time, Guru.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
And you.